Hey, good morning. This is Nick Freitas filling in for John Fredericks again on a much-needed, much-deserved vacation. We all miss him. Joining us on the phone, the estimable former Army Ranger, former law enforcement officer, small business owner, senator from the great 17th District, Bryce Reeves. Bryce, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Nick. Good morning, and thank you for using that Texas A&M greeting that we all use as howdy. I caught the last bit of smashing the Aggies, so yeah, okay, I got you.
Well, okay, so I did do a little jab. I did a little jab at the Aggies, but I will go back and I will say that this is coming from General George S. Patton, not me. But George S. Patton said, "Give me West Pointers and I'll win a battle. Give me Aggies and I'll win a war." So
that's right.
That's a pretty good endorsement.
7 Medal of Honor winners from Texas A&M. 7.
Yeah, no, that's impressive. It's a great institution. Yeah. So, Bryce, tell us a little bit about the work that you've done as a senator, and obviously you've got a hard race that you're going through right now. You're working hard, but again, what are the reasons why? I know the reasons. I want the viewers to hear the reasons why they need to send you back to Richmond.
Look, it's let me just say this, Nick. You and I share a common bond. And for those who served and worn the cloth of our country or first responders or anything else, when you serve with people under adverse conditions and high-stress situations, there's a bond there that those type of situations can never unbreak, and it builds. And so, we're not people that go out and brag about accomplishments, and I think that's probably the hardest thing and probably something I don't do very well, but we've done everything from get concealed carry permits back, working a deal with Governor McAuliffe to do that, and making sure that violent domestic abusers don't get their hands on firearms. You don't hear about that. You don't hear about the good things that we do, and to make sure that we've taken care of our veterans. I carried the very first service dog bill in the country that set the boilerplate for the rest of the country with regard to making sure that our colleagues that have come off the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, like yourself, Nick, I'm pre those wars. I'm a Gulf War guy, but making sure that's set, making sure that you and I have co-chaired the Military and Veterans Caucus, and we've been Army strong on that, and but we've done it in a non-partisan fashion, and we've always made sure that that's that way, and that's why we are the #1 state, literally listed by some major organizations to do business with regard to our veterans and our DOD and our forces. You and I worked on this last year, and most people don't know this, except people down towards Hampton Roads, that, hey, we had extra room for a squadron F-22 Raptors. We got to work, and we got the stuff together that the Department of the Air Force wanted to see, and we worked with our military commanders, and sure enough, we've got another squadron of F-22 Raptors coming to join our other guard unit that's there. So,
well, and I want to point out on that one, Bryce, because that was not something. And people look at that, and again. Obviously, we have a huge military population in Virginia. We have a huge veteran population within Virginia. When we got that squadron here, that's not just making Virginia safer, making the country safer. That was bringing in good high-tech jobs for people. It was creating more opportunities within the Air Guard and within our National Guard elements. And again, not only did you make that argument, and you spearheaded this, but you got every single senator to sign on to that request. And I got to apologize. I got to apologize because I was only able to get 99 delegates. There was one delegate that refused to sign the resolution we had, the letter that we had to try to get the F-22s here, and it was Delegate Lee Carter, again, avowed socialist, Lee Carter, member of Antifa. He refused to sign it, and I really think it's because he doesn't want us having, an unfair advantage over the communists, by having additional F-22 Raptors in the Commonwealth of Virginia. But no, you really did spread. But there's another thing I want to talk about, because you did. When it came to the concealed carry permits and Attorney General Mark Herring several years ago trying to unilaterally just destroy our reciprocity with concealed carry permits, you not only got back everything that we had, you actually got more. In the work that you did there, and it was great watching you work. That was one of my first years down there. But then the other thing too that happened this year that I think most people don't even realize and are not aware of is the work that you did on the omnibus bill for foster care in Virginia. Tell us a little bit about that.
So last summer, I got in a pretty heated conversation with some folks that were involved at the executive branch with regard to social services and foster care and adoption. And, I think you eloquently say it quite often about the value of human life and our children and what they mean to us. And, there's some statistics out there that really bothered me as chairman of social service and rehab. And one of those was that we are the number one state, and I like being number one, but not in this case, of children that age out of foster care. So we're not getting them quality homes, and by the time they're 18, they've had so many homes that the likelihood of them being a productive adult is going to be pretty tough, considering they've probably had, lots and lots of homes. And it takes a rare individual, and I know a couple of them, one serving as a Commonwealth attorney, the other's a Navy SEAL, and he's a delegate with us, that came out of foster care and broken homes. And I'm not saying that those kids are all broken. What I'm saying is we need to do a better job of making sure that they have an upbringing. And so we've worked several cases. Nick, your office has worked some cases with us as well. And I got tired of hearing excuses. And we got to work. And not only did we get it done, we actually reformed it. I worked across the aisle. I'm not on finance, and you know this, we're in the House. If you're not on appropriations or Senate finance, the reality of you can get all the bills you want passed, but if you can't pay for them, where are you? And we tack a price tag on every bill, and it's very frustrating at times. You don't get credit. But as I move forward, I got a hold of Janet Howe, Northern Virginia senator who's a Democrat, and I worked with her on some trafficking stuff with Hamas and some other things before. And I asked Janet if she would carry the water for that, and sure enough, she did. And we needed about $3 million, and we got 2.8, so I was very happy with that. And so we put these things in place. And, you understand it, and for the listeners, the hard part is not just drafting legislatively, putting it in, but the hard work is the relationships and trying to get people to understand the finer details of something so big as, and they call it an omnibus bill because there's so many parts. I could have had 25 separate independent bills, but we were limited in the Senate this year to how many bills, so I had to crunch them all kind of into one big thing, kind of like subparagraphs on an essay, and make sure we got those points done. And that's going to change lives. Well, and it's going to allow – go ahead.
No, I think you're right. I think one of the things that people need to understand is that when we talk about caring about human life, when we talk about caring for children, one of the most important things that every child needs is a good, stable, loving home. And we did have major problems within our foster care system where kids were staying in there for years upon years, and we made it difficult for them to be adopted. And the bill that you did and what you worked on and working across the aisle in order to make sure that we got what we needed in order to get it into effect, it is going to drastically change lives. What that means for children all across the Commonwealth currently in the foster care system is that adoption is going to be easier, that it's going to be a better environment for them, that we are genuinely caring, and we're Virginia is stepping up the plate and fulfilling our obligation to these kids that need a safe and stable place and be able to grow up and thrive. And again, I just think it was incredible work. And then you did. I think you got almost universal support for it, right? Was there any no votes?
No, it's 140 members signed on to the bill. But, Nick, I'll say this. You're a Christian man. I'm a Christian man. And one of the things that I believe is that, God tells us that we need to make sure we take care of the least, the last, and the lost among us. And, that's what this does. And as long as we continue staying focused on what matters most and not getting tied up into the politics of things, I think we can accomplish a lot. The challenge that we have, and you and I, and looking going forward, is, the left no longer plays with an even deck. I've told my team this, that, look, winners don't look for excuses when the other team plays the game. And in this case, in the General Assembly, my opponent this year is a liar. I'm not afraid to call her that. They're distorting the record. The bill that we carried this last 2 years, to help fix health care, along with two of my colleagues, because Democrats weren't doing anything. Republicans decided to step up. I'm an insurance agent by trade. I knew that there was some stuff coming down, and we had a 300% increase just south of your district and in my district in Albemarle in premiums. And we had people that did not have health insurance. So we got to work. We passed a bill It came out of the Senate 40-0. That means every senator voted for it because it's a good idea. Went to the House, came out bipartisan, went to the governor's desk, and he vetoes it. Mm-hmm. He vetoes it because he doesn't want Republicans to get a win. So he cares about politics and repairing his reputation more than he cares about people and their health conditions. This is a governor who has sat there and told you he doesn't care about life because he talks about killing a baby outside the womb. Mm-hmm. And yet he doesn't care about patients either. And it just abhors me that he's a pediatric neurologist, yet he still doesn't want to do the right thing. So we carried the bill again this last year thinking, hey, maybe some things have changed. We've sweetened the deal. I put a rider and a separate bill in that says, hey, once you have the policy, you get a guaranteed insurability option. You'll never have to worry again. Anyway, I'm getting in the weeds, but the point is it came out of the Senate 40-0 again. Mm-hmm. And it went to the House and it passed again, and it went to the governor's desk, came back down. And did the senators that voted for it the first time have enough gump to override? No, they didn't, because they're worried about politics. And my opponent this year is saying, I don't care about people. I don't care about pre-existing conditions, that I'm asking their insurance premiums right. It's all false.
Oh, no, it's verifiably false. And here's the part that is so frustrating about it, because obviously our districts overlap. My House of district overlaps with your Senate district. And I've been to several events now where I've seen, your opponent come up and talk, and it is this all folksy, I grew up on a farm, I just want to work hard, I just want people to have better lives and health care. Oh, okay, great. And how do you plan to do that, Amy? Because the reality is that the only solution you have for health care is more government control over it. Because we had bills went through, we had bills that were supported by Farm Bureau that would have provided more options to consumers for them to be able to choose what their health insurance should look like. And I saw Democrats stand up time and time again and say, no, if we don't control it, you don't get it. Because we're going to decide what your health insurance should look like. And that's really what this comes down to. Again, they use the word caring a lot. But I've gotten to the point where they say caring, and then I look at their actual policy, and what I see is control. And that's what's gotten so frustrating, is because you did have a good bill. We had some other good bills that would have provided greater options, that would have made it easier and more affordable for people to find insurance that worked for them. And the response that we get is that if it's not going through a specific government process where they get to control it, they're just not interested. And then they accuse us of not caring about getting people quality and affordable health care. So no, it has been very, very frustrating to watch. And it's also frustrating to watch the media repeat the narrative, which is why it was so nice to finally see PolitiFact come out with some of the ads that Senator Saban Donovan's opponent was putting out there, saying that we didn't care about pre-existing conditions, or we didn't care about affordable health care, and rate it as being false. Because
right. Yeah. Well, that was our bill too.
Yeah.
So that's what you get for being part of my process and my bill. I was working with Dr. Donovan on it, and they're slamming her, and they're using the same narrative. And Nick, look, I think the listeners are smart enough to realize. Look, my opponent was in charge of Emily's list for the state. Mm-hmm. Her number one recruit candidate was Kathy Tran.
Yep.
Delegate Kathy Tran. Now, I don't know that delegate for anything, because I don't think a lot of her bills ever made it to my committee. But I know one bill that made it, and I'm glad that your colleague and Majority Leader Todd Gilbert had common sense enough and smooth enough to be able to really articulate to people that were watching what the bill did.
Yeah.
Because we had that same bill carried by Senator McClellan and signed off by a bunch of senators, and we had disposed of that bill early on. Mm-hmm. But mark my words, and you know this, and we've talked about this, because we are at a tipping point in this state that if reasonable, prudent people who care about our country, who care about the direction, who care about human life, who care about having the freedom to be individuals in this country, make decisions on their own, want to continue that, then this is the year. Because if we get flipped, I guarantee you, one, we're not going to have as many congressmen, because we'll go through redistricting, you know this, and we're not going to probably win a statewide or the House and the Senate back for quite a few years. And that's not, look, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just telling you the reality. You and I are military guys. We always ask, hey, sir, what's the reality on the ground? What am I facing? What's the enemy's strength? Where are they dug in? All those sort of things. That's how we operate. And that's the truth. So for listeners who understand that today, you got to get out. You got to vote, because we have a ton of money coming in this place from New York, New Jersey, California, all over the place. Every special interest left-wing group that you've ever thought of, from Soros to Bloomberg to all of them, are coming in here, and they're trying to buy elections, and they're propping up candidates who don't have any experience to step into the ring and do the things and the hard lifting that we're getting done. And so, wake up. Look what they're doing to our president.
And you look at what Delegate Alfonso Lopez, very, very liberal delegate from Northern Virginia, he said that if they take the majority, and they are 1 seat away in the House, 1 seat away in the Senate, if they take the majority, they said they will change Virginia within 2 afternoons. And Terry McAuliffe said the same thing. We are going to change Virginia. Right. That is, you notice that is always the narrative. Elect us and we will fundamentally change. Do you love anything that you desperately want to fundamentally change? Nobody goes to their wife and says, geez, honey, I really love you. I just want to fundamentally change you. Again, I go back to we believe in the fundamentals of the country. Our goal has always been to live up to them. We understand that we don't always live up to them, but they want to come in and fundamentally change who we are as a people, who we are as a Commonwealth. And they need to understand, voters need to understand they are dead serious about it. This is not political hyperbole. They are dead serious about it. Hey, there's one other thing I want to go. Well, we got a couple more minutes on the line. There's a lot of people that received rebate checks. A lot of Virginia taxpayers that were able to get a little bit more money in their pockets. And I can tell you on the House side, I want to hear what happened on the Senate side. On the House side, we had to fight tooth and nail. So the narrative or the story here is, they passed a tax cut on the federal level, but in order to make sure that taxpayers actually got it, we had to reform the tax code in Virginia. And there was 2 different ways that we could do that. We could reform the tax code in such a way that those people who had paid the taxes got the money back, or we could reform it and spend it in such a way to where the government ended up spending hundreds of millions of dollars instead of it going back to taxpayers. I'll let you guess who was on which side of that issue. But here was the frustrating part, and I want to see if this happened in the Senate. This wasn't just a disagreement. Democrats wanted to spend more. Republicans wanted to give it back to the people that had paid the taxes. And you would have thought we could have had a civil discussion about the 2 different ways, 2 different approaches. Instead, at the same time where Governor Ralph Northam is getting caught with KKK robes on his personal Facebook or his personal yearbook photos, the Democrats are now accusing us. They didn't call out the governor for his racism on the House floor. They might have done a press conference, but on the House floor, they are saying that if we didn't agree to their spending scheme, if we didn't agree to spend the taxpayer dollars instead of giving it back to taxpayers, we were racist. We didn't care about the poor. I mean, throw civility out the window. If you don't agree with them, you're a bigot or you're a xenophobe or you're a racist. And all we wanted to do was to say, if you paid this tax, then you deserve the rebate. What was the discussion like on the Senate side?
Let me just get as close as I can to quote the minority leader, Dick Saslaw, is what he said, and that'll sum it up. This is our money, not their money.
Oh, my gosh.
Right? On the floor.
Yeah.
Right? Well, it's not our money. It belongs to the people. We gave it back. So, I've been at a couple of events. I asked how many people, and I've had people ask me, why did I get this money back? Yeah. Now, it's not a ton of money. It's 110 to 220, but for some families, that's a lot of money.
Oh,
right?
Bryce,
sometimes.
I know you were in the same boat I was, but I remember being a young private in the military where $100 or $200 that kept the power on. That kept the heat on in the winter.
Well, Nick, let me. I know we don't have a lot of time left, so I want to talk to the listeners today a little bit about you because, I don't think people understand. Great leaders know how to pick great leaders, and so for many people who are like, man, those 2 sure get along well. Let me tell you, the listeners, why we get along so well. Because when I first started 8 years ago to run against an incumbent that no one said could be beat, right? 28-year incumbent, chairman of finance, all these things. I get an email. Actually, I got a message through Facebook from a young sergeant named Nick Freitas, who had just gotten out of Special Forces, come back from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and was disheartened at having to serve under a president who was, while he was serving, watching his fellow colleagues take rounds and get shot and not come home, and watching our country and where they were headed, and he was losing hope, and he knew I was a Ranger, and he messaged me and he said, hey, I want to help. And from that day forward, you and I had a bond. Mm-hmm. And I had come through the grassroots, and I said, hey, this is the way I know how to do it. And you weren't even interested in looking at running for office. Nothing like that. You just wanted to help.
No, I wasn't.
So, I know you weren't. And so for your listeners out there, I know how to spot talent. So when Nick Freitas goes up and he's one day in the White House, I'm going to take full credit for it. I'm just telling you
when I'm in the White House taking the tour. Well, hey, Bryce, we got to get to a break real quick, but before we leave, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, how they can donate.
Well, two things. You can donate to Nick Freitas as well, because we've got a hell of a race up here with him. But BryceReeves.com, you go to our website, you can do that. Listen, we're on the webpage. You just Google Bryce Reeves, you can find us. We're on Twitter, all those things. But
all right.
Listen, Nick, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for your leadership, what you do each and every day. And John Fredericks, if you're listening, have a great vacation.
All right. Thank you again, Senator Bryce Reeves, the man, the myth, the legend, and the guy we want to keep our senator.